Good to see a full room. I was a bit worried because earlier with the traffic that was going on with the heads of states in town, I thought, and the rains, I thought we might have half of the room. So it's really, really good to see everyone who braved the traffic and also believed it might not rain tonight, so we are still holding the clouds. But let me first really appreciate my good friend, P.S. Kipto, who I've known for a long time, from his days in the former Prime Minister's office to his days in trademark and now in government, and we've continued to work very, very closely together. And thank you for, in a short notice, when CS Matiang'i, who had wanted and has been asking about this index, was to come and officiate the launch, was tasked with other duties because of the heads of states that we have. I'm so glad that our good friend P.S. Kipto, and he'll be telling us a little more about that when he comes up. He could come in a short notice. Let me just say a few words. I'll be back to just share what this year has been. But I really wanted to say, as the apex body of the private sector, our work is really to coordinate business and business associations on cross-cutting issues. And this is not different. On the work that we've done with SME, we wanted to understand what are the issues, where we are, where they are, and then who's doing what. We've heard about what Chamber is doing. We have SMEs in manufacturing. We have SMEs in services, as we've heard. We have SMEs in tourism. We have, and in trade and everywhere else. But as they do their different work, our role as KEPSA is to look at what is cross-cutting as the issues, policy issues that are coming up, investment things, opportunities that are coming up, and engage on that, so that we are not focused on SMEs in trade, in SMEs in tourism, and all the different areas. Our work is at that high level, and so that's why I really wanted us to hear a little bit about SMEs in some of the sectors and what is happening. So without further ado, let me ask P.S. Kipto to join me here. And then I'll ask the KEPSA board to also come up here. And then those who were, and then I'll ask the Strathmore, who really, really have worked along with us on this area of SMEs. I'll ask Richard Muteti, who has been our SME champion in this area, and he'll be speaking a little later just with a few words. And I'll also ask the embassy that has also been supporting us this work, Muya and the two others who shared on behalf of SMEs, to please just come up. Just join us so that as we launch this, then that we can allow P.S. Kipto to give his statement after this. Allow me to invite any of the trustees or advisors also who are here to also join us.
Okay, there we go. Thank you very, very much. Please take a moment. There's a copy for all of you at the back. Take a moment to read, understand, and let's work together. Many of you who are here today are SMEs. All started as an SME. No one began as a big company. We all started somewhere, and we want to work this journey.
Welcome to Markets Today. I'm your host, Mbithe Mwema. Tonight, we are at the launch of the MSME Kenya Index for the year 2019, a report that has been launched by KEPSA. With us, we are actually speaking to the CEO of KEPSA, Caroline Kariuki. Welcome to the show, Kariuki.
Thank you very much.
This is a fantastic report. This is the Kenya MSME Policy Index 2019. What is it about? What is the genesis? Why is this report important?
So in 2010,
We actually sponsored an SME bill into Parliament with one of the members of Parliament, and that culminated to SME Act 2012. And after that journey, we said related to SME Act 2012. And after that journey, we said related to SME Act 2012. And after that journey, we said related to SME Act 2012. And after that journey, we said related to SME Act 2012. And after that journey, we said related to SME Act 2012. And after that journey, we said related to SME Act 2012. And after that journey, we said related to SME Act 2012. And after that journey, we said from a bird's eye view, because as an umbrella body, our work is to look at the policy areas, the investment areas, and say, what is everyone else doing? What can we champion together?
Okay.
And so that's where this work began. And then with our regular roundtables with the president in 2016, when the issues of SMEs came up, there were many initiatives, but also many ideas of what needed to be done. And we asked the president, can we do an index so that we come back to you and give you a report of what the real issues are, culminating and who's where, who's doing what. Right. And so that's the work we began then. Yeah.
So this is a commitment in 2016, the version of which 2019. So what are the issues that are facing the MSMEs?
Not much actually that we don't know.
Okay.
You know, finances, capacity building, workspaces, just not having a voice, a coordinated voice, you know, policies that are not aligned to the sector. So a lot of that, it's what we know that just hadn't been put together, was in the act. But again, at the same time, it's to know where they are, who is doing what, you know, in terms of the SMEs themselves, but also people who are working in the SME sector, who is doing what. So that has been actually the problem. And so this is what that report puts together.
Okay. Yep. So you've spoken to 1,562 SMEs and collected their views, and really you have measured what we already know. So Carole, what next? Because this is, we're in a space where, okay, we know you don't have funding, so what?
So it's to look at if it's funding, who is funding? Okay. Who is interested in funding? And start looking at that and measuring that. As again, as we've said over and over, what gets measured gets done. And so that's what we're not measuring. So there's even a lot of money that's going to the SME sector, but is it going to the right places? Okay, is it meeting the real needs and the real SMEs? So that's what we want to start measuring, so that we ensure that we're not discussing about financing another 10 years. We're not talking about capacity building another 10 years. You know, we have private sector, we have government, we have development partners, everyone in this sector trying to do something for the SMEs, but what is the impact? So that's really where we want to focus our energies on.
All right. Yeah. So then after this report, as KEPSA, as the Chief Executive Officer of KEPSA, and sitting really in the middle of what the private sector does as well as what the government does, then what happens? Do you take this and voice it as a policy? Do you voice it as an act? Do you make the proposals known to government? Then vice versa, do you expect then financial commitments with regards to investments from the private sector? How does it work?
So several things. One, there's a policy that needs to be developed. So we have an act of parliament, but we don't have a policy. So we'll be engaging government with this work in terms of creating a policy. Okay. But secondly, is to now, we've already started engaging the manufacturers in terms of how do they offload part of what they produce to the SMEs. So what can we do with all the other sectors? And sectors are doing that, but again, it's not being mentioned. And again, also people don't know that it can be done. So we'll start doing that from the private sector side. But the third thing is also now starting to make sure that the issues of SMEs are streamlined among all other issues that we handle, so that they are not left behind. And so that's really what we want to focus on.
Then earlier you also had a presentation from KEPSA for the roundtable and your initiatives for the year. And you did say that you've had 2 roundtables with His Excellency President Uhuru Kenyatta. And for this year, what was different is you made financial commitments. You had actions and you measured these actions from the private sector. Maybe you can highlight some of the key things that have come out from the roundtables that you've had this year.
So part of, when you look at the budget paper this year, anything that was geared towards private sector came out of that meeting.
Yes, it did.
You know, from VAT, to all the import declaration fund and forms and all that. Anything that you saw from private sector actually came from there. And so that was very exciting for us. And that's what now we are monitoring in terms of implementation.
Okay.
And then secondly is the private sector. They made commitments of investments, of expansions. Again, that's what we are monitoring. And as I raised, I said some of them have already done, Isuzu, Toyota, Bidco, and others. They have actually accomplished what they said they would do. You know, and so we're going to continue to follow up with others. But again, the idea of doing this is to encourage many more, because I think we have a tendency as this country to complain a lot.
Yes, we do.
You know, and so we want to move away from complaining to action, to say, when we ask for this, this is what we plan to do, and we do it.
So that if you're looking at numbers,
Yeah.
well, how much can you say has actually been committed from the roundtables that you had this year with regards to either impact new capital expenditure or maintenance capital expenditure? Is there a number that we can look at, or how should we look at it?
Maybe no. I don't think I can go to numbers because maybe we need to aggregate
Yes.
the different investments to be able to see how much each investment has been put. Some have put in terms of numbers and in terms of workforce. But also what we are realizing is that we've also been calculating our jobs wrongly.
Yes.
In the sense that a factory puts up a plant and it says they've employed 100 people.
Okay.
And we think those are the only 100 jobs created, but we don't look at the value chain of the jobs
There'll
created.
be people who will sell food out there.
There are people who will be the producers and all that. So
that's
that whole
true.
value chain, those are jobs.
Okay.
And that's how we need to start aggregating our jobs
Okay.
so that we measure our jobs rightly, but also to be able to point people to where the jobs are. So that they don't hear factories opening and only run to that factory, but to start thinking if a factory of animal feeds, for example, for Bidco is opening, Bidco will need maize. You know, they'll need other things. Can I go and produce for
So
Bidco?
there are different touch points that cut across the
Yes,
industry.
yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
I have two more questions for you. Again, I want to leverage on the space that you sit in and the heart that you wear. When we're looking at the economy, we have come from a downturn. Everybody's saying we're nearing the bottom, but then there was a reversal with regards to that sentiment, the rate cap repeal. When we're looking at the business cycle, are we coming off the low, or are we in a place where we expect a bit more volatility? How should we look at the financial year 2020, or rather the calendar year from a business perspective?
So we've had two reports done by KPMG.
Okay.
One around the SMEs and their projection of 2020. And as you heard the chair saying, about 77%, they're saying they're going to be employing more.
Wow.
Then we had a CEO's report. Again, it's positive. So there's a lot of positivity.
What is the positivity? What are 2-3 things?
The rate cap was a big issue because
so
of
the
the
rate cap.
liquidity. You know, once there was no liquidity in the market, that affected business.
Exactly.
But also I think there's a lot of looking at some of the policies that have been put in place. And if the implementation continues with that traction, then we see a lot of a good stuff for business. So I think that's why there's a lot of positivity in business. I think what we need to keep looking at is to make sure that also there's been calmness in politically.
Yes.
You know, and that is a big factor
hope it
for
lasts
business,
more.
and we hope it lasts for the next
I
many
know.
years,
Yes.
not 2 years,
Not
many
2
years.
It needs to last for a decade or so.
Exactly.
Okay. So
Yeah.
very interesting.
Yeah.
Then now my final question is this. When we're looking at the macro variables, we're looking at inflation, we're looking at foreign currency, we're looking at interest rates. We've already talked about the rate cap repeal. How do we look at the currency? Because we have seen reports coming out, IMF saying that the currency is overvalued. Then the Central Bank of Kenya is saying it's undervalued. And the unfortunate thing for us is we are net recipients of foreign direct investments. How do we counter this?
Yeah, I think it's a discussion. When I had that, I remembered a conversation. I think I was reading or watching something about the UK, Great Britain, going through this conversation in I think 1970.
Wow.
You know, yeah,
That's a long time
1970, where IMF was telling them they need to devalue their currency, and they were thinking we cannot. We're Great Britain, we cannot devalue. But it got to a point where they said, you know what? Because we still do a lot of exports, we can devalue without really affecting the internal, except external. So our conversation should be, if we get to the place where we have to devalue, then what structures have we put in place to increase our exports?
That's a good question, because we're still on a deficit.
On a deficit, so we should be having that conversation holistically, that just currency, to start looking at our exports, imports deal and all that as we discuss that.
Okay.
So that's where that's
a
to look at it. Yeah.
But then as a follow-up to that question, does that mean that you still expect to see increased foreign capital inflow into different spaces in the economy?
And that has continued. I think we're doing so much better with FDI. Okay. There's a time the region were not doing as well as our neighbors, but I think that has changed. We're starting to see much better FDI in Kenya. And so that's a good sign. Okay. And so this conversation, we need to have it holistic, than just the currency.
So you're optimistic?
I'm optimistic.
Please just leave us with a parting shot. How do we look at the economy? What are your sentiments for next year?
My sentiment is that I think let's look at what we have, the resources we have, and focus our energies on that, not on what we don't have, and then see which opportunities can we create. So focus on our comparative advantages, focus on new opportunities, and not also only just say, oh, we're only good at this, but there could be so many other opportunities we're not looking at. Yeah. Okay. Kenya is so blessed with so many opportunities, so many resources, and we have not exploited.
And I completely agree, because even as the downturn comes out, the skill sets that are required from a human resource perspective are very different. So if you don't align, if you don't change and move on with the times, you'll actually just keep sitting and complaining. Okay, thank you so much, Carole and Kariuki. Congratulations on your report. Well done on the fantastic work you're doing at KEPSA. We hope to see you again on Markets Today.
Thank you. Okay.
That was Carole Kariuki. She is the Chief Executive Officer of KEPSA. They have launched a report on the MSME sector. A lot is going on. To stop complaining, we need to act. If the foreigners keep investing and they're seeing opportunities here, what opportunities are you seeing? Continue to engage with us. Till next time. Thank you.